Join me today as we talk about the series Fear the Walking Dead. This is the Geek Cabal channel. My name is Bobbie, and today we're going to be talking about the AMC series Fear the Walking Dead. This is a spin-off series of the main Walking Dead series that has 8 seasons, and I believe it ended last year, the year before. I just got done watching all of it on Netflix. I started a couple months ago and been watching it off and on. Like I said, it's 8 seasons, and most of them are longer seasons. Similar to The Walking Dead, the first season's like 6 episodes. But the rest are up there with 15, 16 episodes. The final season's a few shorter. I think it's 12. But, yeah. So I'm finally finished with it. Wanted to, since I wasn't going season by season, wanted to just wait till I was done to do a video on it, talk about the whole thing. And, yeah, so now I'm done so I can talk about it. I'm not going to, since it ended fairly recently, I don't want to spoil huge chunks of it. I'm going to be talking in some generalities. There'll be some specificness in there. But on top of that, I didn't take notes as I was watching it because I thought it was going to go just a little bit faster than I did. So, and I'll talk about why that is here. So, I'm not really going to go into the characters because they're not nearly as iconic as the ones in the regular series. And there's a number of characters that I thought had interesting moments that don't last long on the show, and there's another number of characters that are all the way to the end. They're just kind of like, eh. So, overall, I liked the show. Just to be clear, before I get to my criticisms of it. Kind of wish I would have watched it as it was coming out. I think it might have been a little bit more impactful, maybe. Or maybe not. I might have gotten tired of it because there's some things that they kind of repeat that started to get on my nerves before the end of the show. So, in case you're unaware, it's a zombie apocalypse show. Unlike the other one, this one starts at the ground floor, as things are just about to fall apart. So the original series opens up pre-zombie apocalypse to explain how Rick winds up in the hospital, and then him waking up in the hospital and zombie apocalypse. So you only get a few flashbacks to the intervening moments between those two things. This shows the collapse, at least in Los Angeles. So you have that. That was one of the reasons I was kind of interested in watching it. And then I waited till it was on Netflix so I could watch the whole thing. You have that. You have a couple more just ludicrously extreme scenarios occur. And, I don't want to, I'm not going to complain about that. It's just some things just are so over the top, though. But yeah, I wanted to know because some characters do end up crossing over from the other show. And if they were crossed over back, I wanted to know what on earth they were talking about, because I still need to also finish the main Walking Dead show. Because I watched it up to the point that Rick left the show. Made it a couple episodes past that, and was like, no. The main driving force was me seeing what happened to Rick, so with him gone, my interest declined rapidly. But now there's a spin-off show with Rick in it, so I need to know what's going on. So anyway, so I call this one a spin-off show. This one has 8 seasons. Okay, it is a spin-off, but it's one that went the distance. The main series I think has 12 seasons, maybe 13. And then the spin-offs at the moment are all in their first seasons. One of them has had a second season. And a couple of those are going to have second seasons. I just don't know if they're going to be like full-blown shows that just go and go and go, or if they're like, we've got this story, it's going to take a couple seasons to tell it, then we're done. A few seasons. So that remains to be seen. So, yeah. So where to begin here? So it starts in LA, whereas the other one starts in Atlanta. So you're on the West Coast. And by the end of the season, you know, society's in ruins and zombies are everywhere and people are fighting to survive. And so the first season and probably a lot of the second season was more about survival than trying to build anything or have anything permanent. You know, it was more a matter of like, well, the world sucks, so like we got to survive. And there's a number of characters from the first season that do make it to the end. But there's other characters you pick up along the way that become equally important, which also happened in the main series. Like, you know, in the main series, Rick, and Carol, Daryl from the first season all made it to the end. But then other people you meet along the way, like Maggie, who shows up in the second season, you know, she makes it to the end, and some other folks. So it's kind of like that. Now, I will say, unless I completely missed it, some folks just kind of don't show up at the end of the show. So I don't know what the hell happened to them. And then there was some other random people that I was like, you're in like 2 episodes. Why are you here? You know, like it's like, I'm glad they didn't forget your character existed, but like, what are you contributing here? You're literally just in like a group shot. I won't go into who on that though, because I don't want to spoil it. So after a certain point though, the show becomes about trying to build a settlement somewhere or take over a settlement or something of this nature, at which point someone else comes along and wants it or wants to destroy it, or there's some conflict between them, and like people make sketchy decisions at every turn, and it's like they just kind of pass around the idiot ball as to who has to have the moral high ground this time, and so is going to make a bad decision that's going to affect everyone else later. Or the sheer number of people they come across that they should just shoot. Okay? So, a pro tip, by the way, if the zombie apocalypse does happen and you end up stuck with me, like, I'm going to have a very low tolerance for people screwing with us. Like, we come across some rough and tumble group when their leader's stupid enough to be there with us armed, like, they're not walking away from it. So, that's all there is to it. Like, you don't let people like that live. They will come back for you. They're always assholes. Like, they're always out for revenge. And this isn't TV where they'll always get their comeuppance. Like, they'll attack you when you least expect it, and they're going to do some damage. So, just head that off at the pass. So, that's my advice for the zombie apocalypse, by the way. So yeah, so you run into that several times here in the show, and it always costs them something in the end. And sometimes that something doesn't show up till later, and you even have someone, like, the show has a constant problem of, oh, weren't you dead? And you're like, well, you know, you didn't actually see them die. They were just in a situation that would be virtually impossible to get out of. So we just kind of assumed that, you know, they're dead. Which, you know, that's on us. It's a TV show. We shouldn't assume these things. But it did get a little ridiculous by the end. As far as people thinking that you're dead and then you're not. And I mean, I think there's a couple of characters this actually happened to multiple times. It happened with the villains a few times, and it's ridiculous. I will say, at least one of the characters to one of the villains did the right thing. Everyone was begging him, like, oh, she can come around, oh, this is what so-and-so wanted, and she's just like, nah, she's responsible for this. I'm just going to shoot her. And then she did. I think she shot her. She killed her somehow. But yeah. So you have that happen quite a bit. You also have Like, you'll be watching an episode, it's like, oh, okay, well, now I know where everything stands with everybody. The next episode, it's like, we all got separated, something happened, where are we, who is everybody, what's going on? And you're like the fifth time, you're like, Jesus, show, stop doing this. It's not cool. No one likes this format of storytelling. You're only doing it to prolong the show. Because now, what you're going to do is, in this episode, everyone's going to act like everyone else is dead, which is a safe assumption in the zombie apocalypse, in fairness. You know, if people wander away, like, they probably got eaten somewhere. So, you know, fair assumption. It's tedious. Because by the end of that episode, they will have found someone like, oh, we thought you were dead. Like, we saw you 6 months ago. And you're like, what the hell do you mean 6 months? Like, it was one episode. What, 6 months? What the hell are you talking about? And so then they'll find some more people. Then they're like, where's so-and-so? And then the next 2 episodes will be a flashback showing what happened to those people right after whatever it is that separated them. And then they'll meet up with them at the end of the episodes or something. Like, this happens multiple times throughout the show. And it's like, it'd be one thing if you did it once, maybe twice, and actually show the inciting incident. Like, whenever the people are on a raft on one side of a dam that gets blown up and get, like, sucked through where the water's flowing out. Like, yeah, that's the kind of thing that could separate people. Plus, there were some of the people on the dam. Like, we see the inciting incident. But then other episodes are just like, oh, where is everybody? You're like, oh, don't you remember the dam exploded? And you're like, well, no, I don't, because you didn't show me. What the hell are you talking about, show? So that gets frustrating. And that's one of the reasons why it took me so long to watch this. Because some of the episodes are just kind of tedious nonsense like that. But the problem is, they know that you know that, so it's not just going to be a case of, oh, just watch like the first couple and the last couple episodes of the season. Important things happen in the middle. Or like, the villain will get taken out 2 episodes from the end. And then you have the final episode where, oh, lo and behold, someone we thought was dead is back to life. And then the next episode is, well, it's flashbacks. We can see how they survived the impossible and who rescued them and what they're doing now. And everyone has their moral check they've got to do, because at some point or another, most of these people end up like leading a settlement somewhere. They all do very morally questionable things. They're all trying to like morally one-up each other, like, no, this is the way so-and-so would want this. No, this is the way the new world's got to be. And, you know, then another one will take over and be like, no, we have to be ruthless. You know, these people, everyone's a threat, you know, and so if they're a threat, we got to take them out. And the next person, oh, but so-and-so wouldn't want it this way. And, you know, it's a revolving door, and it's that part's kind of fascinating, you know, just the whole like, well, you know, let's see what everyone has to say when they're in charge, you know, show us who they really are, except when they act out of character. So yeah, I mean, it's not great, you know. I think The Walking Dead was a better show, because it was more, okay, Rick and company, here's this nice looking settlement. They don't know the evils of the world, so let's move in and we'll offer to protect them. But at the same time, Rick is clearly just going to be a dictator overseeing everything. He doesn't have an iron grip, you know. He has the velvet touch. But you cross him, he's going to kill you. Once you get to a certain seasons of the show. And he wants to be peaceful. He offers people peace, and they keep turning him down. So then he has to kill them, but usually the settlement gets destroyed in the process, and all kinds of nice people get eaten. So then it's on wandering to the next settlement to bring our carnage and destruction to. You know, whereas these people are like, we have to build a settlement, which we're then going to ruin whenever someone tries to take it, and all the carnage ensues, and a bunch of nice people die. And although it was kind of funny, like, one of the settlements falls apart, and several seasons later, like, they get attacked on the road, and they're like, hey, wait a minute. You were the other people at our settlement. What the hell are you doing? Like, surviving. Like, so you're going to let us go? No. It's just like, man, what an asshole. Like, we helped you survive, and like, this is how you repay us? So, yeah. Now, as I mentioned, there is one just like ludicrously over-the-top moment in the show. And I knew it was coming because I'd seen it in the trailers and seen little bits and pieces of that particular season. But there does come a point, I think it's in season 5 or 6, where this maniac cult leader is able to gain control of a nuclear submarine and fire some of the nuclear missiles and devastate a huge chunk of Texas with nuclear warheads. And then, like, the characters have to, deal with this. And as the show progresses, they have to deal with it less and less until finally they're just like, oh, well, we just left that area. Like, fallout, radiation patterns, we're in Louisiana now, it's fine. So, the show does dip into Mexico, then back into the U.S., then back into Mexico, then back into the U.S., and then eastward until finally they visit some locations from the original series in Atlanta and wherever Negan's base was. So they actually end up getting pretty close to where the other people should be. But I think by the end of this show, they're actually, in terms of the timeline, they're ahead of the other show, because there's a 7-year jump at one point. And I believe in the original series, Negan goes back to the sanctuary at some point and it's still intact, whereas whenever Dwight, who showed up from the original series, goes back there, it ends up being, a lot of it ends up getting destroyed. So I don't know, I'll have to finish the original series to get to that episode where Negan goes back there to make sure. But so Dwight and Morgan from the original series show up over here because Morgan leaves The Walking Dead and walks to Texas, I guess. And Dwight is trying to find his wife, so he's following a trail of messages and does eventually find her. And then after season 3, we're introduced to a whole bunch of new characters who eventually catch up to the people that we've been following all this time, except they're the marauding band at that point. So it was an interesting turn of events. But yeah, you have things like that, and like I said, certain characters definitely go through major changes as it goes along. There's one character they have along with them who basically threatens to kill all of them at one point or another. He's really not impressed with people lying to him. That would be Daniel, Ruben Blades' character. And yeah, at various points it's like, oh, you lied to me. I'm going to cut your fingers off now. So yeah, he's almost as much of a threat to them as he is to everyone else, But you have things like that. But most of the characters are decent characters. I liked a lot of the new characters that showed up in season, again, I think it's season 4, and some others they pick up along the way. Yeah, so then I will just say a note on the end of the show. It didn't end the way I thought it would. So I will tell you what doesn't happen. What doesn't happen is they don't have some new fancy place. In fact, they don't have any place. They don't have anything that they've built. They don't, one of them isn't going to take the idiot ball and be in charge again this time. And some of the characters don't even know that some of the other characters are still alive. And those characters intend on keeping it that way. Because they've decided that maybe the idea of them is more than they are. This was kind of a Batman Begins kind of moment where they're like, as a man, I can be destroyed, I can be corruptible, but as a symbol, then I can be incorruptible kind of thing. And it kind of starts happening. So I see why they chose to do that. So, yeah. Overall, I thought it was an enjoyable show. Like I've said here, it definitely has its downsides. So I can totally understand after my review, you're like, I'm not going to commit to 8 seasons of this. That's a totally understandable reaction to what I've said so far here. And I'm not going to try to dissuade you from it. If you like The Walking Dead, and you want to know what happens, like the characters that drift over there, plus you want to see things from a different perspective, then yes, I would watch it. But I've mentioned some of the shortcomings. Hell, there was a villain from, I think it's season season 3, I think, that it's clearly like setting up some kind of confrontation, then just like never see him again, ever. Meanwhile, other people you think are dead show back up all the time. So yeah, it's weird like that. But although honestly, I would expect that to be more of the reality than what we see of people walking halfway across the United States and miraculously finding someone in the middle of the zombie apocalypse. And these people constantly being separated and realigned with each other. Although again, like I said, the last time it happens, some people aren't there, and maybe I wasn't paying attention and they got off somewhere, but I don't think so. I think they literally just don't show up again, which is too bad. I kind of like some of them. There's a very, very minimal number of people in the finale, like at the end in the finale. So yeah, I thought the ending was bittersweet, but more or less kind of what I expected. Like I said, they're not in a new safe place. They're not sure where they're even going. They're going different directions, and they're hopefully going to meet back up at some point. There's no cure for the zombie virus. There is potentially a cure if you get bit, and I'll go ahead and tell you what it is. It's a dose of radiation. So the downside is potentially large as well, and we only ever actually see one person survive this process. So it could be just a unique one-off situation. So yeah, overall, I liked the show. I'd probably give it probably a 6.5. Now, like at the various peaks, 7.5, 8. You know, like there's a part in the finale that got me a little bit, but and not nearly as many people as I thought were going to buy the farm in the finale happened. But you can tell when you're closing in on the finale because characters start leaving, and yeah. So, and based on what happened, and this is a minor spoiler, based on what happened, I kind of wonder if Morgan's going to show up in the other shows now. Kind of like him too, because he leaves to go find Rick, because he was friends with all those people, and he might be the linchpin in like uniting both casts into one larger show, if it ever goes that way. But yeah, like I said, overall I was entertained. It's got its downsides, but you know, if you like the whole zombie apocalypse thing and you like The Walking Dead and you want to see a little bit different take on it, then I would watch the show. If you don't want to commit to 8 seasons of it, totally understandable. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that but once you start it'll suck you in or something like that. No, it won't. Like the first couple seasons might, but once they start pulling the things I've started mentioning here, you might be like, all right, I'm checking out. I shouldn't have listened to that guy on YouTube. Which is why I'm telling you, I'm not sitting here trying to say, oh, you should run out and watch it. Like, if it sounds like you want to see it, then watch it. But if what I've said sounds like something you want to avoid, then don't watch it. You know, because it is more or less what I'm describing here. And it probably shouldn't need to be said, but the show is graphically violent. Like, zombies get killed in very gruesome ways constantly. People get killed in gruesome ways several times. But yeah. So, like I said, I would say probably 6.5 with some episodes that hit 7.5, 8 is probably what we're looking at. I definitely think The Walking Dead is the better show, or at least up through dealing with Negan. So that's my take on it. Let me know what you folks think down in the comments. Have you watched it? Do you plan on watching it? Like I said, at the moment it's on Netflix, or I imagine if you have AMC Plus, it should be on there, I would think, because it's an AMC show. And I'm sure you could buy the episodes, but if you've got Netflix, why would you do that? So anyway, let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Do you like zombie shows? Do you like The Walking Dead? Have you watched this one? Have you watched them both? Have you watched the spin-off shows about how Daryl somehow found his way to France? I haven't watched it, so I don't know what kind of baloney that's going to require, but I would think that a transatlantic voyage in the zombie apocalypse would be somewhat difficult. But that's just me. Maybe I'm just not seeing it. I don't know. I mean, people made the voyage before the modern world. They just didn't have a bunch of undead cannibals trying to eat them. So, anyway, that's about all I got. So, always appreciate you sharing, subscribing, all that fun stuff. Sharing and commenting on the things that help us grow the channel. We always appreciate it. But, yeah. Other than that, just remember, the title of The Walking Dead's about the people, not the zombies.